Welcome into this week's The Women's Basketball Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things WNBA, college hoops, much, much more. Mia O'Brien and my, oh my, do my eyes deceive me? Or is Rebecca Kopelman sitting in once again for Mitch Northam? Of course, the chief meteorologist at Iowa's News Now. I should know that. I used to work there. I should probably have the proper pronunciation. Rebecca, of course, is also a diehard WNBA and Indiana Fever superfan, although she roots for the entire league. She roots for the league, even if she's rocking a WNBA Jam shirt. Shout out homage. And that's okay, because she's here for all the storylines, all the beef, much, much more. Reba, how are we feeling after another exhilarating week? You, of course, text me each and every day, the storylines to follow each day. So it only feels fitting to have you on the pod this week so we can recap the week that was.
I think that it's the time of the year now where, it's everybody's still competitive, even where you have this spread from, the links at the top to the wings at the bottom. But we have such an exciting time with the just kind of middle ground fighting for those last couple of playoff spots toward the end. And then we also have, some just still injuries that are plaguing the league and some sad ones that are hitting hard to Fever fans. But it's just a fun time to still watch women's basketball and see some of the incredible stuff that all of these women are doing.
We're going to touch it all on today's episode. But first, as we do each and every week here on the Women's Basketball Podcast, we begin with our Her of the Week. Reba, you have Her of the Week honors this week. Who is this week's honoree?
I mean, she could literally be it every week, but it's A'ja Wilson. She's incredible. Just recently had the first 30-20 double-double in WNBA history. And then, of course, because of the person that she is, she went on to say, I may be the first, but I'm sure I won't be the last one to do it. But just an incredible scorer. And I go back to your chart that you had last week of
the tears, yes.
The tears of Becky has obviously had a little struggle with the aces. They've been a little bit more on the upswing, but they've had some lows of the Lynx beating them terribly at home. But A'ja has been consistent, and she's also been plagued by injury, dealing with her wrist at one point and still putting up insane numbers, dealing with a concussion. And then Jackie maybe also possibly concussing her again, but consistently preventing Becky from kicking puppies. But 22.2 points, matching her number for her average right now for the season, 9.6 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 1.6 steals, second most 2010 games in W history, second to Tina Charles, who's been, around for a while. Another little fun note is that NaLyssa Smith and A'ja share a birthday, and NaLyssa said that it was the first time that a teammate had given her a birthday present, and it was from A'ja. And also A'ja
is that a shot at the Fever? I mean, is that like a subtle? Ooh, okay, interesting. All right, no one at Baylor, Kim Mulkey, you didn't want to give her a nice little birthday gift, perhaps? I mean, I guess it's August, July, so summer birthday, but still.
Yeah, I don't know. I get maybe a subtle shot at the Fever, I suppose. But yeah, so that's another little note. And then, of course, A'ja's iconic Pride cakes. Every Pride month, she has some pretty beautiful cakes that she creates for her all of her queer teammates, and just showing her allyship. And then, of course, just the hilarious shoe situation at the All-Star game with and then Bam just gassing her up. I just all around. I mean, she is her of life. But she's amazing to watch, incredible at some of the things that she does. And just I think that initially there was this thought of, and I know we're going to get to more on this later, but Nafisa Collier, really being a standout, but A'ja just consistently, she's just consistently consistent.
Yeah, we're going to call that a tease, Reba. We're going to call that a tease, Rebecca Kopelman, about what's to come in this week's main event. But before we get to that, yes, A'ja Wilson, this week's Her of the Week, even though she could be each and every week, 30 and 20, certainly a sight to behold. certainly a sight to behold as well, the state of the Indiana Fever. That is where we begin this week's starting five. I'm just going to sit back, and I need producer Dimitri to like cue up the world's smallest violin in post, because this is it's heartbreak, to say the least. And I know for you, your heart is even more hurt than mine by the series of injuries we have seen to the Indiana Fever. But the reality is, and I said this on ESPN radio over the weekend, they're still in the thick of a playoff race, despite all of the shortcomings and despite the players that they have missed over the last few months. They are still finding ways to win, even if it's not pretty. So take it away with item number one in this week's starting five, Rebecca.
Yeah, I mean, I was already heartbroken when I woke up to the score of the Phoenix game that I could not bring myself to watch. And
I
then
watched
find
it.
out,
It was not fun.
Then I find out that Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald are hurt. And then you find out later, I was like in shock. I was not well. Then you find out they have season-ending injuries. And for Sydney Colson, who just turned 36, I think, like the day before, is that potentially career-ending for her? So the one shining point is that if you had missed it, Ari McDonald was in the midst of working on like a 20-page paper. She got 200 out of 200 points on it. So there's some good news.
Because now she can't play basketball. She can focus on getting her master's degree. There's that.
Exactly. There's
also this part of it, Rebecca. Like, so again, for those who may have missed it, Sid Colson done for the year with a torn ACL in her left knee. That is her first torn ACL, correct? She hadn't torn it previously, or at least not that one. Yeah. So it's obviously awful for the backup point guard for the Indiana Fever. But then Ari McDonald with a broken bone in her foot that is also season ending. She actually kept playing on it, for what it's worth. Like, they have identified the play in the game in which she broke her foot. And then on the ensuing play, you see her sprinting down the court. Call it adrenaline, sure. We're going to call it heart and hustle, because that's what she's brought to the Fever, as well as a true point guard on the floor when they needed it most. And now she's done for the year, but at least she can focus on school, I guess, which is still sad.
Yeah.
But also there's another part of this that I know was really what was the sticking point for you.
I don't even know what
the nine player. Your issues with the hardships. Yes.
Well, yeah, there was that too. There was a whole, they find this out. They have a day or two between games. At that point, they play Phoenix.
Or no, one, because they played. The Mercury game was on a Thursday, and they were playing Saturday at home against the Sky.
Yeah, so they barely had time to kind of figure all that out. And then the league rules were that you have to have at least one game without those available players to get a hardship. And so then you had to wait. But the other fun shining point is somebody that I had previously pegged to come to the Fever when she got released, was Odyssey Sims, is now on a hardship with the Fever. So another note that I did see about that is that we know this one.
Oh yeah, this is the part where Mitch Northam and I, if he was here, we would do the Brian Windhorse meme. Have you seen us do that before, Rebecca? Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go in 3, 2, 1. Yes, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, that was a beautiful moment. Yes, Rebecca holds up the Caitlin Clark big head. I do the Brian Windhorse meme, because you have access to the WNBA's PR portal, and you did a little super sleuthing before we fired up the podcast this evening.
I just saw that some info about the fact that if they could sign another hardship player right now.
Yes, there is an extra roster spot because they had 9 available players. They are now at 10. Yes.
So they could, but because this one is still out, if she comes back, they would have to release that player. So does that mean that we maybe have a timeline? The other thing that showed up was that her status changed to game time decision. There was another site that had her Caitlin listed as questionable. Though Steph White did come out today and say she's out tomorrow, which is not expecting that. But I know you had discussed this timeline of like the 3rd week in August. And I think that's kind of consistent because this week they're home all the way until, I think, is it through Saturday until Saturday?
One of the two.
but that had kind of been the projected like August 17th kind of time frame. The one thing is that it seems like they're still ramping her up in practice, but you'd think with the full week at home, you could maybe get her back into kind of the regular rotation and maybe get there. Saturday, you're also playing the Sun, and no shame, the Sun, they're doing some things, but like, do you need her for the Sun? Maybe not. But, hopefully after that to make that last push, because you do have some other teams that you need to fight to stay in that playoff spot. So you may need her. Now, I believe in Odyssey Sims, first of all. I have loved her since last year. I think that she is a great decision maker. She will be a great backup for whatever kind of point guard situation we have in the starting lineup. But I think a great ball handler, because you don't have a true ball handler right now. So I think she will be that for the Fever. And I was very sad that she had been sitting out there. I know she was out for personal reasons, and I was a little worried she may not come back or be available for the Fever, but I'm glad that they got her.
To clarify on the point guard part of it all, before we circle back to the Caitlin and the conspiracy theory surrounding when Caitlin Clark will return from that right groin injury at long last, who do you want to see? Obviously, Odyssey Sims gives you depth at the point guard position. Are you in favor? Because I know you text it to me seemingly every day in jest, and I agree with it. Are you in favor of Aaliyah Boston being the point forward that the Chicago Sky are trying to turn Angel Reese into, or are you more comfortable with Kelsey Mitchell stepping into a role that she previously had in Indiana? Do you want to see Sophie Cunningham with the ball in her hands, bringing the ball up the floor more? Or is it a combination and it's by committee?
I think that, their by committee thing did kind of work, and that takes the pressure at least off of Aaliyah to do what she does best and get to the basket and be able to, post up and do that work. But I was kind of surprised they didn't have Aaliyah on the ball more, because it seemed like that was not happening as much. I do think that she can thrive in that position. We've seen it. The one thing I'll mention about the Sky game, though, that I also saw some chatter about, was that they were not putting a lot of pressure on the ball handlers. And I worry that when we get to Dallas Tuesday, that there may be some more pressure and some more turnovers that start to happen when you have, a little bit more of a loose ball handler. And, they really will have to tighten up on that. So I think that'll be kind of interesting to see. I think that all of them are kind of, they seemed like, they didn't have a tight, like real handle on the ball all the time. So it's hard to say, but I think it's obviously going to have to be by committee. I don't expect Aaliyah to necessarily always be primary ball handler, but I would like to see maybe her in that point forward position a little bit more in the next game.
I agree, because she can take the ball up and down the floor and create, which is, again, an area of her game that a year ago, I don't know if we would be saying she had that to her repertoire, but she does. I'm personally of the belief that Kelsey Mitchell has had such success in 2025 playing off the ball. I don't want to see her as a primary facilitator. If anything, and I know this is tough given the last 2-3 week stretch she's had since being inserted in the starting lineup, I don't even want to see Sophie Cunningham as the primary point guard, because I think she's been such a great threat from the wing, and that's only occurring when she's freed up and she's not having to create for other players. So yeah, it's going to have to be by committee, but I'm glad they signed Odyssey Sims. But to your point, yes, Holly Rowe, right after Caitlin's right groin injury, reported, and again, I've said it on this podcast and I'll say it again, I said it on ESPN radio too, like ultimately, she said right after the injury, she talked to Steph, and Steph's response was, well, the first time she sat out for 2 weeks, the second time she got hurt with the left groin injury, she sat out for 3 weeks. And now we're going to be extra careful and in ramping her back up. So expect like essentially double. And Holly said, and I think it was like July 21st, she was like, that would put her the third week of August, mid-August. And obviously August 17th is slam dab in the middle of the month. And so that's what I have been expecting. We are recording this podcast on Monday, August 11th. If the Fever were to have signed a player today or yesterday, they would not be able to say bye-bye to that 10-day hardship waiver player until August 20th or August 21st, which means that the overarching lurking figure, she's lurking again, folks, Caitlin Clark will be returning in the next 10 days. Book it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to pretend to be one on a podcast, TV, or radio. But if you connect the dots, this is a significant development for WNBA fans. And I believe she was always coming back. Contrary to those who said we need to shut everybody down because the Fever are done. No, the Fever right now are in 5th place in the WNBA standings. And Mitch and I both had them as 4th in our tiers when at full strength. And so the Fever are in the postseason so long as they don't blank down their pants. Yes, as long as they don't bleep down their pants, they're going to be just fine. How about some other teams, though, that maybe are in a playoff race? Maybe they're not. Let's keep it moving with this week's starting 5, Rebecca. Biggest trade in the WNBA over the last week, Aaliyah Edwards for JC Sheldon. I'm going to say it straight up because the pick that was included, the pick swap, the picks are 1 pick away from each other, which is funny because Aaliyah and JC were picked after each other in the 2024 WNBA draft. So it's as straight up a trade as you can possibly see between the Washington Mystics and the Connecticut Sun right before the trade deadline. Ultimately, we expected Aaliyah Edwards to be moved because she did not fit this new Princeton offense system that had been brought to the DMV this past offseason, certainly with the rise of Kiki Iriafen, as well as Shakira Austin and her presence in the post. Aaliyah was not cracking the starting lineup, and in terms of finding consistent minutes, it never really got off the ground running in year 2, despite the fact that I think everybody, including anyone on the Washington Mystics, would agree she's a darn good player. So she goes to the Connecticut Sun, which stinks for her. Maybe not, because she played at UConn and she loves Connecticut. I think she's from Connecticut. So good for Aaliyah Edwards that she gets to go back to Connecticut. But to play for the Sun, who are mired in mediocrity, while the Washington Mystics have been one of the feel-good stories of the 2025 campaign, are vying for a playoff spot, or at least people believe they are. And that's where I want to take number 2 in this week's starting 5, Rebecca. This move for JC Sheldon straight up, who averages, what is it? You wrote it down for me. She averages 7.6 points per game. Like, it's not like you suddenly inserted a scoring threat to replace Brittany Sykes into your lineup if you're the Mystics. You brought a greater defender on the wing and someone who in college was a legitimate 3-point threat. She has not been that at the professional level at the clip that we see traditional 3-point specialists. And so she's a 3-and-D, but she's more defender than she is 3-point shooter. And so that's why I'm fascinated by the trade, because what does it say about the Mystics? Are they believing that they can make the postseason, or are they saying, well, now we have JC Sheldon under team control for the next 1 to 2 seasons, and that's all fine and good?
I think it is interesting because the situation too, where you also brought in Alicia Clark, is the,
who is the 3-point shooter in that dynamic now. Mm-hmm.
But she, similar to Aaliyah Edwards' kind of trajectory, was expected to kind of be the starter and just wasn't producing for Seattle. And so you don't really have, you're not making up for all those points that Brittany Sykes was bringing you. So it is interesting. I do think, yes, JC is definitely going to elevate their defense. And we're gonna, we're hoping we make a push for the playoffs, but we're then just going to continue to invest in this young core and, take in what we can in the draft. I'm not sure, but I think that they have had some impressive games, and some of their losses have, been by a hair. So they're still, I think they're still in it. They're in the mix. And it's a tight race for that 8th spot.
Yeah. So JC Sheldon, since being traded last week, of course, she was acquired right after the trade deadline. It was on the day of. It was on August 7th. In her 1 game so far for the Washington Mystics, in 22 minutes, 8 points, 2 boards, not exactly lighting the world on fire. Meanwhile, Aaliyah Edwards did not get the start in her 1 game with the Sun so far, a 94-86 loss at the Aces. But in 17 minutes, she had 4 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, 1 steal, 2 turnovers. Like, stuffs the stat sheets, not the score that we believe she can be here on this podcast, just because of what we saw at UConn. I would say this. I would say, regardless of if they believe they can make the postseason in 2025 or not, the process is clearer for Washington in this trade and the other moves they made at the deadline comparatively to the Connecticut Sun, who I still have no idea what the long-term play is. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because they know that they're going to just focus on the 2026 draft, 2027. I don't know what the play is. With the Washington Mystics, it's clear. They cleared the deck. Yes, LOL, pun intended. They cleared the deck by trading Brittany Sykes away. We're going to get to her here in just a second, too. They traded Brittany Sykes away so that when Georgia Amore returns from her torn ACL, she is your starting point guard. Lucy Olson, if she sticks around, is your backup point guard. You added wing depth, which you really lacked, especially if Sonia Citron is primarily playing the 2 and not a wing position. And then, of course, your front court is as loaded and as young, and depending on, how long they keep Shakira Austin around, coupled with a veteran in Stephanie Dolson, that is as good a front court, I think, when performing at their peak as any in the league, at least of a young core that doesn't include Asia Wilson. And so I think that the process is clear from Washington, even if the player isn't as marquee a name as the one they just gave up.
I agree. And the thing too, with Aaliyah Edwards that was surprising was that she almost won that one-on-one competition in Unrivaled. She was showing out. I mean, I was expecting to see a lot more out of her. And obviously, as the Mystics started to see what their game plan was going to be, she just was not keeping up with it. And so maybe she does help fill that role in Connecticut, because Haley Peters, who you pulled out of retirement or whatever she was doing, I don't know, but she, I don't think, has been as productive for them really at all. She has seen her minutes go down and down, and maybe the Aaliyah can kind of come in and show what she can do in another system. But I thought she was just overall impressive during Unrivaled, and was expecting more. But yeah, you have really maybe these pieces of the puzzle in Washington that you can start to put together if you can keep everyone through the madness that will be, next year's free agency free for all.
Absolutely. And that is what it will be, Rebecca. Let's keep it moving with this week's starting 5. You are going to rattle off for us the latest. All of the injuries. Number 3 in this week's starting 5, folks, on the rundown is literally listed injuries. All of the injuries. Because it's not just Caitlin Clark. It's not just the other members of the Indiana Fever. This is a league-wide phenomenon right now in the worst way possible.
Yeah, Jordan Canada, it's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Jordan. She got carried off of the court during the game with the Dream were playing against Phoenix, a team that also was the game the Fever were playing when they had their injuries. Is it related? I don't know. But Jordan Canada currently hurt. I haven't seen any true updates on her, but she's listed as day-to-day. Angel Reese has been out without a timeline, similar to Caitlin Clark. Mahisha Allen has been dealing with an ankle injury still. And then you have Paige, who has been dealing with a back injury. Nafisa Collier, who is
out for a minimum,
or a few weeks.
Be reevaluated in about a week and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, then Kayla Thornton with her season-ending heartbreaking injury for the Valkyries. They also have, I think, a couple of other injuries listed for their game. And then obviously Brianna Stewart came out and said she is working with the trainers and pushing them so she can be back before her birthday, which I think is August something around the 17th or 19th, something like that. So maybe soon. Yara Sabali also for the Liberty dealing with an injury, Kennedy Burke as well. And then Shakira, as Lisa Leslie called her during Unrivaled, had been, I didn't even catch that she was injured, but saw that she wasn't playing for the Mystics, and they still won, which I was impressed by because she has been incredible for them. Then you have all the season-ending injuries with the Samuelson sisters, Georgia Amore that you mentioned, Sloot, Nika Mule, who will she come back? I hope so one day. Ty Harris. And then all of the other injuries that have happened. Ryan Howard and BG did come back. Ryan Howard came in with a bang and got ejected with her 2 texts.
Welcome back, Ryan. You got ejected.
There you go. So
Jonquel Jones as well missed significant time.
Yes.
I want to go to this though, Rebecca. For those who are finding our podcast, again, Rebecca Kopelman sitting in for Mitch Northam this week on the Women's Basketball Podcast. For those who are looking for the stars in the WNBA, again, everyone knows, seemingly, unless you've been living under a rock, that Caitlin Clark has missed the bulk of the last month because of a right groin injury since the game before the All-Star break. So you're out Caitlin Clark. You don't have Angel Reese. Nafisa Collier, the runaway favorite for MVP. You are out. She's out for at least another week and a half. Brianna Stewart, a marquee name in the sport, has also missed the last 3 weeks. I mean, we don't even have to go further than those 4. Paige Beckers has missed time on and off over the last month. And there certainly has been a conversation about load management with regards to Paige, but it's not load management because of the scheduling. It's load management because she has also been nursing an injury. That's a starting 5 right there, Rebecca, that would fill arenas. And not only fill arenas, but those are all household names. And they are all banged up and or have been out for a significant portion of time. I'm happy when I see the ratings numbers from ESPN PR that suggest, hey, people are still watching. But it is a concern, is it not, as we get ready for postseason play when the calendar flips to September?
Absolutely. And I mean, on top of that, when you're also seeing the struggles that some of these teams are having, particularly, I mean, Sabrina Ionescu she's still making, plays, and she's getting there. She is certainly, if we want to talk about,
Stewie went down. Yeah. I mean, 2 30-point performances, so she's fine.
But if you want to talk about another shooting slump in that respect, I mean, look at her 3-point percentage. It is down. She didn't make one in the last game. She's had a couple of games that she's just been struggling from the 3 and to shoot the 3. And then if you don't have that from Sabrina and you're missing, Stewie, you saw the struggle the Liberty started to have when they lost JJ. So you have these pieces that start to, go down. And then the Lynx are just, I don't know. Cheryl Reeve got something in the Kool-Aid.
I feel like every other day, and we should note that Rebecca's fiance is a Minnesota sports fan. I feel like every other day I'm getting a text of Kayla McBride is dead. They're carrying her off. She's going to the locker room. And then I get a text, oh, just kidding. She's back on the bench now. And I'm just like, what is wrong with Minnesota, man? What's wrong with you?
But then she shot lights out. I mean, like, she set a record 8 for 8. Yeah. She shot 8 for 8 in the first half. First person to do that from 3. Perfect scoring in a half of a basketball game in W history. I mean, incredible. And then started the game this past weekend and hit 2 from 3 in the first 2-3 minutes. And I'm like, all right. And then, so they keep going. But, you can't expect those players to, those are the kind of players that, I mean, Kayla McBride's pretty consistent, but sometimes you have some of those more inconsistent players that when you need that MVP on your team to be that consistent piece. And when that's missing, especially around playoff time, that could certainly be concerning.
Yeah. And well, not to go back to number 1 in this week's starting 5, but briefly I will. That's part of why I don't want Kelsey Mitchell on the ball. I don't want Kelsey Mitchell at the point guard position because I don't want to take away what has been a strength for the Indiana Fever, which is her playing the 2 guard position just because, well, I need someone to be a primary ball handler. I don't want to lose that and have to compensate because I don't have Caitlin Clark. I'd rather have Kelsey Mitchell playing as well as she possibly can and exhibiting all of her strengths and then piecemealing the point guard position together. And certainly, Sabrina Ionescu's shooting from the 3-point range of late. Is it because she's pressing? Because she's having to pick up the slack? Because she is the face of the franchise right now? Because she is the marquee name on the floor? I'm sure she won't tell you that, but that very much could be reality. I promised we would get to one of the other big trades right before the trade deadline, and we will. Brittany Sykes, we talked about this on last week's episode, but I want to frame it in a different light for number 4 of this week's starting 5. Brittany Sykes leaves the Washington Mystics, heads across the country to the Seattle Storm. In exchange, Alicia Clark comes to Washington. For me, Brittany Sykes, Skylar Diggins. I don't want to call them the Spider-Man meme, where they're pointing at each other and they're the same, but they have very, very similar skill sets, Rebecca. And I brought this up to you. And you said, now what's funny, 1 week post-trade, is that you feel like Skylar Diggins, despite still being the starting point guard for the Seattle Storm, and Brittany Sykes did start against the Los Angeles Sparks in the backcourt opposite Skylar Diggins, you feel that it actually is a role that Diggins had with the Storm that now Sykes is taking over. And so final box, again, this is one game and we can kind of, go through this. We can dismiss it as it's a one-off, or we can dismiss this as this is what it's going to be. Both players took shots in the double digits. Skylar Diggins, 7 of 18 from the floor. Brittany Sykes, 11 of 21. Both made 3 threes in this game. Brittany Sykes with 1 board, 3 assists. Skylar Diggins with 6 assists, 2 boards. Skylar Diggins with 17, Brittany Sykes with 27. So that's one game. Now the first game Sykes came off the bench. She played 29 minutes in her debut for the Storm, 14 points in that one, 2 boards, 7 assists in that same game. Skylar Diggins had 6 assists as well, 0 points. Do we dismiss these as one-offs, or do you think that it's going to turn into a clash of they're the same player and that redundancy could take away from one player's opportunities to score from the other?
I think that's, it's almost similar to what was happening with Paige and Enrique in the beginning of the season. And it's an interesting time to add a piece that you're inserting into your starting lineup, unlike when you're, the Mystics bringing Alicia Clark over. She's not going to be starting. She's going to play a similar role, come off the bench, and provides a bit of depth for you in that veteran leadership. But then when you're bringing Brittany Sykes over and you're seeing what she does, and then you take out Erica Wheeler, which I'm sad about, from the starting lineup. Fine, we love Erica, but I think that you're going to have those similar struggles that a team would usually experience in the beginning. I was so shocked to see that box score when Skylar had 0 points, because she is such a prolific scorer for them and tends to lead scorers. I mean, Brittany in that game against the Sparks then led all scorers with 27, and one of her skill sets currently is getting to the line, but she obviously taking more shots than Skylar is, and you're going to probably have that clash and have to try and figure that out. And you're dealing with 2 vets and 2 that tend to be, Skylar especially tends to be very competitive and wants to win. And so I can imagine that might cause some perhaps tension in the locker room when you're seeing that happen. And then you lose to the Sparks. But the Storm have been having some inconsistencies, because you have some of these great pieces. You have NECA and you have Gabby Williams, and then you have Don Malonga of just blowing it out of the water lately. And then it's like, where are we not, able to just kind of get that push, to get above 500? I think they're sitting, they're sitting at 500 right now, 16-16 on the season. So I think that this is kind of an odd position to be in that may cause some struggles still here, and kind of the time you don't want some struggles.
Right. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If you show me the Seattle Storm lineup 5 years ago, I'm like, oh my God, they must be an all-star team. And now I look at them, and much like the New York Yankees in their current form, I'm just like, okay, you're all washed up. Like, okay. And that's not to say that Skylar Diggins and Nneka Ogwumike, Brittany Sykes are over the hill. It's just that they are in the second half of their prime or post-prime of their careers. It's the reality of it. And outside of 19-year-old Dominique Malonga, I don't know, and Nika Mule, if she's healthy, I don't know what the future of that franchise is, to talk about roster construction. I don't know where they're going from here. I think by bringing in Brittany Sykes, you're not trying to make Skylar Diggins redundant. Your thought process is, well, we have experience and high IQ players, and we're just going to win with our defense. And whoever goes off from 3 that night, great. Whether it's Diggins, Wheeler, or Sykes, none of them outside of perhaps Wheeler are 3-point specialists per se. So we're just going to win with strong guard play, on both ends of the floor, and bank on, if we just have a bunch of defensive demons out there, we're just going to cause havoc, make your life hell, force you to make mistakes, and then we will capitalize on them, which is a unique way of looking at competing for a playoff spot. But when you don't have, outside of Malonga, the natural, crazy, off the chart athleticism ceilings that a team like the Mystics, where you just have young players who are just finding their way on the floor, or the Indiana Fever, who have players who have either been hurt or they're still so young in their career that there's still room to grow. This is probably a smart play. But again, like, I just look at it and I'm like, if you showed me this 5 years ago, I'd be like, wow, that's a great team. And now I'm just like, oh, like she's been around a hot minute, which is fine. We love the OGs. We're here for the OGs. Let's, for the sake of time, continue and wrap up this week's starting 5. Rebecca, you have alluded to it. We're going to hit it in addition to the main event, where we're going to have a lot of fun with a little award show, if you may. We love award shows here on the Women's Basketball Podcast. But who is the real 8th seed if the season was to end today? Again, we are recording this podcast on Monday, August the 11th. Here are the standings. Here is what the seeding for the WNBA playoffs would look like. The Minnesota Lynx would be the 1 seed, followed by the New York Liberty, the Atlanta Dream, the Phoenix Mercury. Indiana would be the 5 seed, Las Vegas the 6, Seattle the 7, and the Golden State Valkyries at 15 and 15 would be the 8 seed. Los Angeles is in 9th place, the Mystics 10th. The Sky, Wings, and Sun are all 18 and a half or more games back. And obviously, their seasons probably come to a conclusion at the end of the regular season. And so, Rebecca, I say to you, who is the real 8th seed in the WNBA playoffs?
I think it's very hard to say, but I know that the Mia campaign, and I think I see it, especially because you got Cam Brink, and she came back and just has been
she's a pterodactyl
out the gate.
I said it to somebody at Jags practice. Like when she like swatted Lexi Hull, like it didn't even look like she left the ground. She just, man, just get it out of here.
And she had 5 blocks against the Fever. 5.
Well, she had 3 in 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then got into foul trouble, but that's okay. But like, also they were teammates, weren't they, in college?
Yes.
Rude.
Shout out Stanford.
Stanford on Stanford crime. And then, just I think that you have Kelsey Plum. Just I know that you're rooting on her with
Mitch's futures bet. Yes,
shooting lights out lately. But there's just been I think a spark, for lack of a better word, some wordplay there, that they are making that push. They are working on it, and they have Dearica Hamby. She's been incredible, and Rakia Jackson has also been just very, if she's playing well, the Sparks win has been the kind of storyline there. But then you have some of that depth on the off the bench that can come in, and I know Cam's been playing off the bench, which with maybe some minutes restrictions and everything, like that is what you need. You need that kind of spark to come off and pop off for you and give that defensive energy when you need it. But they have also, like the Mystics, had some of those just very, losses by a few points. And I think that they're in it to get into those playoffs.
Well, that's why this is so interesting to have this 5th in the starting 5, because we've already discussed, we don't know if the Mystics believe that they can vie for this final spot. And by the way, I don't want to say that the 7 seed is up for grabs, because Seattle is 11 games back of first place. So are the Golden State Valkyries. So, I mean, we could throw the 7 seed as also up for grabs if we wanted to. I have been on this podcast for 2 weeks now saying I am doubting the Las Vegas Aces, but hey, if nothing else, Mitch says they're going to be one and done. So maybe that's the route that they take. Goosebumps, choose your own adventure. I like the fact that, to your point, the Los Angeles Sparks, if they are operating at peak efficiency of those teams in that middle to bottom tier of the league, there is not a more talented unit. You could argue that, at least when they play the Indiana Fever, but we've seen it against other teams as well. When they are not turning the ball over at a 15 plus turnover per game clip, the Los Angeles Sparks, in terms of offensive efficiency, might be the best team in the league, not named the Minnesota Lynx or the New York Liberty, because I would argue they're even more efficient than the Dream. Outside of the Dream's ability to shoot from 3, I would argue the Sparks 1 through 5, depending on who is on the floor. And oh, by the way, then you're bringing Cam Brink off the bench. I would argue that they could go shot for shot with the Atlanta Dream. Now, the problem is the turnovers. That's what they did well against Indiana in that route last week. They had just 5 turnovers in the first half. They also only turned Indiana over 2 times. And so defensively, it's been a question with the run and gun style that Kelsey Plum and company want to play. And that's where you open up the door to possibly turn the ball over. But for me, I think in terms of sheer talent, yes, they are the 8 seed. Will they actually reach that ceiling? That's what I'm not so sure, because again, then there are these random games where they just can't shoot and they turn the ball over and it doesn't make any sense. But that's also been a lot of teams on the W pretty much up and down the standings. If it's not the Sparks as the 8 seed, or again, 7 seed, we can throw that out there. Who's another team that you say, hey, they could make a run? Because again, I don't know how the Washington Mystics are looking themselves in the mirror at this point, if they truly believe they could make that final postseason push.
I was kind of just about to give up on the Valkyries, I'll say. And I think that some people still are. I think it would be very impressive for this, first year team to make it into the playoffs. I think that they're one that could easily, I lose it or win it. But I do think that because they had Kayla Thornton go down. I mean, I was like, what are they going to do? Like, Kayla Thornton's been carrying this team on her back. But then you have some of these impressive pieces like Veronica Burton who've stepped up, and Temi, come back to the Fever. But she has been great and consistent for them. And despite their roster moves and whatever kind of manipulation that they've been doing over there and pulling in everybody from across the world to play, something's been working. And they dropped a few games, but they had recently an impressive win, and they, if you're playing in Valhalla, it's
right. Yeah. One of the best home court advantages that there is. No, I agree. I think a lot of us, including myself, wrote them off after Kayla Thornton's injury. They have found a way with Veronica Burton. It's a credit to Natalie Nakase, even though on this podcast, we try to be different. We love Natalie, but we try to say maybe Carl Semesco, maybe Lynn Roberts, if the Sparks sneak into the postseason. Maybe they should also be getting head coach of the year consideration. Maybe we're going to hit that in the main event. I don't know. Point is, yes, I would buy stock in the Los Angeles Sparks first, followed by the Golden State Valkyries for that 8th seed. And again, I'm fascinated by what the Seattle Storm have done. I think it's enough to make the postseason. But if the Sparks catch fire, and the Mystics or Valkyrie find a way to continue to consistently win a handful of games each week, maybe things are a little bit tighter down the stretch than we previously anticipated. Before we get to this week's main event, which is going to be so fun, it's time for everyone's truly favorite segment on the Women's Basketball Podcast. It's time for What's the Beef. Rebecca, I asked you earlier today as we were getting ready for the show, you're always keeping tabs on WNBA Twitter, TikTok. And so I said, what's the beef, Rebecca? And you said, I really don't know.
I was like trying to think through what's been happening lately. I mean, you could argue there's a lot of beef with like these trades and particularly some of the picks that have been given up and like kind of long-term goals and such, but that's kind of boring. But I did then remember that there was a video going around where there were some of the Wings fans that were booing Coach K, as you lovingly call him.
Chris K. He wants to be Coach K. Chris Kopelman is the head coach of the Dallas. He's Coach Chris. Yes, Coach Chris, not Coach K yet. Make a playoff, and then I will call you Coach K.
Not this year, but they were, I think, chanting maybe like fire Chris or something like that. And Maisha Hines-Allen came over and was like, "You guys need to be with us. Like, that's our coach. You got to get on board or get off, And she's like, we got to get behind him in the situation here. And I think that it was interesting. Maybe it's beef with the Wings and fans, or it's just general beef of Coach Chris. But it was, I think, also a good sign that there are players that are defending this man, right, even though it probably is a struggle in that locker room when you are losing and you are trying to put the pieces together. And our other Fever gal, Grace Berger, who got the start in the last game and then just didn't really pop off the way that I would have liked to see her pop off. But she's been at least providing some depth from that point guard position that the Fever could also use back, but that's okay. But
let's get a Grace Berger shout out somehow into the show. I'm glad you incorporated it into What's the Beef. But yes, I would just like to say this. I was listening to a podcast earlier today on the NFL front, and they were discussing an interview that Houston Texans head coach D'Amico Ryans gave, in which he described the energy vampires who were sucked out, who were shipped out of town, which of course is a shot at Washington Commanders offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil, the longtime Houston Texan who had the most penalties of any offensive lineman in the league last year, and told his head coach, I don't care, because as long as we win, I don't care that I am just not being accountable and not being disciplined. And so that was viewed as an energy vampire. The Dallas Wings, much like their counterparts down the road in Houston, believe that they have gotten rid of the energy vampires. Tiara McCown walking off the field after the opening loss, off the court, excuse me. Now I'm getting my sports confused. Walking off the court without her teammates, without breaking down the huddle. Tiara McCown has been released. She is no longer in the equation. Melissa Smith, Dejanay Carrington. Love them, hate them. They had other priorities, and that's okay. And then they also, Dejanay had injuries that were going on, and so she wasn't on the floor. She never found a chemistry with Paige Beckers that she had with the crew up in Connecticut when Steph White was still leading the Sun. And that's okay. But the energy was not matching. So I don't want to call them vampires. I'm going to say the energy didn't match. And so it's a credit to Myisha Hines-Allen, independent of the fact that her brother is a friend of mine and, of course, plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's also from Montclair, New Jersey. Shout out the Mounties. Point being, like, I think that that's a great display from a longtime veteran in the league to say, no, we have the identity now. We have the message. Love him or hate him. He's our coach. This is the team. And this is what we're rolling with. And so that's where Rebecca Kopelman, I bring this to my contribution to this week's What's the Beef when it comes to the Dallas Wings. Mitch and I debated last week how long the leash is for Chris Koklanis with the Dallas Wings, to which Mitch said, well, quite frankly, I think, he's Kurt Miller's handpicked guy and people know that they're buddies. And so he's probably not going anywhere. This is not going to be a Christie side situation unless Becky Hammond was to say, I want to coach the Wings, or Coach K himself says, I want to coach Paige Beckers. And then you say, bye, Chris K. We've got Coach K. So Kurt Miller earlier this week told local media, quote, Paige, as in Paige Beckers, wants to be involved in recruiting players to Dallas. Enrique also initiates free agency conversations with me, which says to me that not only will Chris Koklanis still be in Dallas next year, Enrique Ogunbowale, despite the impending CBA negotiations, the free agent frenzy that is anticipated this offseason, Kurt Miller thinks he's keeping both guards, despite the fact that there have been so many discourses, dialogues, and we've written theses basically here on the Women's Basketball Podcast about why those two guards in the backcourt don't mesh together. And by enabling one, you are limiting the other. And I want to know how Enrique Ogunbowale feels about this. I know she likes living in Dallas. I've heard that from some of her friends. Like, she loves playing for the Wings, but is she ever going to reach the pinnacle with the Wings? I think that, to be clear, Paige Beckers, her goal remains to win a WNBA championship, just like Enrique Ogunbowale. But with Enrique nearly, and God, I hope she's not listening. Don't take this the wrong way. She's 27, 28 years old. Paige Beckers is 23. There's a 5-year gap there. Will Enrique Ogunbowale and Paige Beckers together on the same team ever be able to win a WNBA championship? You seem to think they could.
I present to you a similar age gap in Caitlin and Kelsey, which initially did not seem like would come together.
I want that. Yes.
Right.
It's not though.
It's not. And you would think at this point that maybe you would start to see it come together like it did last year for the Fever and Caitlin and Kelsey. But, is it the fact that similar to the Mystics situation that you're having to mesh these pieces together all of a sudden, or to all of these this storm that you're trying to put all these pieces together so late in the season that it's hard to see the true picture at the end. Right. At the other side of it is just with all of the, new CBA and free agency situation, like Enrique could seemingly get a call from,
Las Vegas,
New York,
because whenever they figure out what they're going to do with
wherever.
Yeah.
Right. And get a phone call and be like, peace. But, especially at that point in her career, getting, into those later stages, perhaps, you're like, well, maybe
I want to ring chase. Yeah.
Right. So, which is totally fair. And she has a skill set. And so definitely interesting comment there, but it's also possible that she wants to hang with it, ends up being like Kelsey Mitchell and saying, I'm going to stay with it. We're going to figure this out. But I do think that there are obviously some differences between Enrique and Kelsey and how that kind of ended up working out for Caitlin, and maybe not so much with Enrique and Paige. But I do think that despite some of Enrique's just maybe struggles during the season at times, like, she is still just such a bucket. I mean, she is incredible. And she's going to find her rhythm again at some point, somewhere, if it's in Dallas or not. But we'll see. And I just think it's it's hard to say who's going to stay outside of the rookies with what's going to come in the off season here.
Yeah, I just think the difference, and trust me, I advocated for a similar lightning to strike twice scenario in back-to-back WNBA seasons. I don't see it happening because it's not that Arike is not humble enough. I'm not suggesting that to play second fiddle. It's that the reality is that her style of play demands she has the ball in her hands and that she is taking anywhere between 15 to 25 shots per game. And you are not able to do that when you are playing with a player like Paige Beckers, who also demands that. Kelsey Mitchell has been able to reshape her game to where if Caitlin Clark is on the floor, and even if she's not, she's taking somewhere between 10 to 15 shots per game, has actually increased her scoring efficiency in the process and has found a new ceiling and a new style of play that meshes well with the rest of the Fever organization and Caitlin Clark. I don't see a world with Arike Ogunbowale's style of play. The fact that we refer to her as a bucket, not that we don't call Kelsey Mitchell a bucket, because she certainly has been of late, and she's fourth in the WNBA in scoring, by the way. People forget about that. People forget, Rebecca. Point being, I just don't see it. Like, I don't see, and that's even with Paige being less ball dominant than Caitlin is. And I don't see it. And the fact that Kurt Miller brought it up, it's beef. It's beef with us just because I want what's best for both players. I want them to both win championships. And I just don't think it's going to be together. And then there's also the Coach Chris of it all, but shout out to MHA for looking out for her coach. So,
yeah.
All right, Rebecca,
she's trying.
Before we get to this week's main event, it's time to tell our friends about the Sports Podcast Festival. What's the Sports Podcast Festival, you say? Why, it is a conglomerate. It is a convening of the minds at the Rialto Theater on August 23rd in beautiful Raleigh, North Carolina. Our friends from Split Zone Duo, Big Screen Sports, and of course, Ovius and Giglio will be on stage. Rumor has it that myself and Mitch Northam may also be there. So, if you love the Women's Basketball Podcast, you're going to want to be in Raleigh on Saturday, August 23rd. Use code SPF25 for buy one, get one half off tickets, either at etix.com or at the Rialto ticket office. Again, that's the Sports Podcast Festival. Use code SPF25 for buy one, get one half off. Rebecca, is there a direct flight to Raleigh from Cedar Rapids that we can get you on? Or
I think there's one to Charlotte. Is that close enough? I don't know.
I think it's like 2 hours.
Maybe
less.
Maybe try.
More. Yeah, exactly.
That's coming up soon.
It is. Yeah, no, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be getting on a plane going on up to Raleigh. So I'm ready. I'm ready, baby. It's going to be a lot of fun. So hope you guys, especially those of you in the North Carolina area in the Triangle, want to come hang out with the OG Triangle Media crew, as well as our friends from Split Zone Duo, Big Screen Sports. There's also a night before party. Some of our other friends. Trust me, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to kick off week 0 of the college football season in style at the Sports Podcast Festival. Use code SPF25 at checkout. All right, it's time for the main event. And this one kind of was a beautiful just spitballing between Rebecca and I, and what could we do as the main event this week? And then we said, you know what? Napheesa Collier being out of the lineup for the Minnesota Lynx will be reevaluated in about a week and a half's time with that ankle injury is obviously a storyline. She is still leading the WNBA in scoring as of this writing at 23.5 points per game. A'ja Wilson right behind her at 22.2. Aforementioned Kelsey Mitchell is actually now 3rd in scoring. Don't tell Mitch Northam. 19.9 points per game. Kelsey Plum, his pick to lead the league, 19.8, followed by Sabrina Ionescu at 19.6. It's not to say that whoever the scoring leader is automatically becomes the MVP of the league. But Rebecca, we're going to take a look back at some of our picks to win postseason awards, specifically the MVP award. And we're going to handicap it by saying this: who is the MVP without Phee?
I mean, it is, I would say, still a competitive field where you have these other players that are doing these things that are, MVP type seasons. And the other kind of discussion in the mix is the fact that, like, when you talk about what's the MVP really, I mean, it's you're the best player on your team, but like, how do
you
you
elevate
kind of,
your team? I think the argument
yeah.
is if you can elevate your team in addition to being the best player at blank.
Right. And so, I mean, when you look at Asia Wilson, who we obviously discussed, I mean, she is still doing incredible things and still breaking records, and she is pushing her team forward. I mean, she is the reason for the Aces still having their success and getting into the postseason. If she was not there, they would be on the struggle bus for sure. So I think there is an argument there. You also, I mean, there was a discussion, I think, did Dawn Staley bring up Kelsey Mitchell as having an MVP type season? I mean, she is third in scoring, but first in actual total points. Some of that has to do with the fact that she's played more games than Asia and Phee because of injury, as well as Breanna Stewart now being out, who is also a prolific scorer and fantastic. I think the Liberty's a little bit harder of an argument when you Breanna Stewart having a great year, but then you have these other pieces of the puzzle. Like when you miss JJ, you can feel some difficulty there. So I don't know that there's a true number. You just have a whole team of,
you have a big three
people.
But that's where but that's where your point about Asia is. It's so well founded, because for those who are also NFL fans, what are the Cincinnati Bengals if they don't have Joe Burrow? What are the Kansas City Chiefs if they don't have Patrick Mahomes? There are very few players in any sport that you could insert them into any lineup and immediately they make the entire team and the entire organization better. And Asia Wilson is doing that with the Las Vegas Aces, perhaps more than she's ever done before in either of her previous MVP campaigns. Like, you could argue this has been a heavier lift for her, while she has also battled injury, than any of those seasons when she actually won the hardware.
And I think that's, a testament to the fact that you had such a shakeup in Vegas where people thought they were still going to be this fantastic team. You add Jewel Lloyd into the mix and you still have Jackie Young, who's also been having a great season. But then they shook up their, cards a whole lot there. And you then have Asia having to kind of pull them along, and she has made that impact. And I agree there. I would say someone else who should be in the conversation, and of course they're incredible social media team, who's hilarious, definitely makes it known that she should be in the conversation, is Alyssa Thomas, who also did set an incredible record that I think someone will eventually come for.
Who is that? Who is that player lurking in the background? Oh, that's Caitlin Clark, folks.
But had 3 consecutive triple doubles. And say what you want about stat padding and whatever. You go later, get an extra assist or rebound. I think it's fine, but still shows she has definitely been an impact player for Phoenix. Now, I would argue if you don't have Satu, it becomes a little harder for them sometimes. DeWanna Bonner has shown that she can still play basketball, and she
does in fact want to, folks.
She does want to.
She does.
But she has been, helpful. I don't know that if you necessarily take Alyssa Thomas out of Phoenix, if they maybe they wouldn't be quite as dominant, but I do think that she certainly is still showing her ability in respect to being that point forward player.
That's a great way, though, to define, regardless of sport, who is the MVP. If you took this player out of this lineup, if you took this player out of this organization, what would the team, look like? And would the team still be winning games at the clip that they currently are? The answer when you say Asia Wilson is emphatically no. They would be dead in the water. As far as if it was the with Nafisa Collier and the Minnesota Lynx, I think there's a conversation to be had. They are not the same team, but we're seeing them win games even without her right now. If you go to the Los Angeles Sparks, which is where I would invite the Kelsey Plum idea MVP candidacy to the conversation, Azurá Stevens currently leads the league in 3-point field goal percentage. De'Erica Hamby also is second in the league. Actually, she's second now to Jess Shepard in field goal percentage. So again, also throw her into the Minnesota equation. And so I think, again, that's where you make a very, very good argument for Asia Wilson. If it's not Phee, who's the MVP? Rebecca Kopelman. But here's the problem. Tom Brady and LeBron James didn't win the MVP award. LeBron's still not winning the MVP award every year. Patrick Mahomes doesn't win the MVP award every year because we're just bored. We're like, we know that they're the best player in the world. It exists, but we want to reward seemingly whoever has the most impressive breakout MVP performance, as opposed to if you took this player out of that team, that team's like dead in the water. They're not competing for the postseason.
Yeah, I think that is kind of the hard part too, where Breanna Stewart kind of gets put out of that conversation because she has won it, and then Asia now.
Yep.
And so I get it. And like, I mean, Phee is incredible. It is fun to watch her, and she has such a skill set with her fadeaway, being able to shoot the three, her defense. And does she deserve it? Absolutely. But yeah, when you define MVP, does she necessarily fit that bill exactly? Because you've now seen her get out, and the Lynx are still able to do what they do without her. But Jess Shepard is definitely a testament to that, because she has been incredible lately.
Let's actually pivot there for the sake of time in this week's main event, as my mom tried to come in to try to say hi to you in the middle of a podcast recording. 2 other awards that last time you joined us here on the Women's Basketball Podcast we talked about, and I want to revisit before we get to making money with Mitch. Most Improved Player, Rookie of the Year. Where are you buying stock in those 2 awards at this point? And thankfully, Napheesa Collier is not up for either of them, although Paige Beckers is up for one of them. And so I'm curious to see where you think both of those races currently stand.
I would say Most Improved is hard. It is, I feel like I almost pitched What's the Beef to be we need more awards, because there are just so many impressive players.
Kathy, stop scheduling games at the same time, and we need more awards. We need more awards.
More money. Gabby Williams just has been having an incredible season with her defense and her scoring. She's been incredible. Azurá Stevens just has also been fantastic. And then you also have just some people like Jess Shepard, who just shows up. And
that's why I wanted to transition. I think Jess Shepard is not getting enough love in the Most Improved Player conversation, and we talked about it on the show previously. I covered her when she was at Nebraska, and she was back to the basket center, and with all due respect, her lower body was a little bit wider than it is currently. She has slimmed down, and certainly our friend Megan Gustafson has gone through the same process, especially playing in Europe, a different style of basketball, having to be able to shoot the 3 ball in addition to being someone who can threaten in the paint. But to see Jess Shepard and how she has changed her body after missing all the 2024 season, like, it is like a testament to someone who truly put in the work this offseason to rehab, but also she can guard the 1 through 5. She could play the 3 through the 5. And it's honestly a storyline that's not getting enough attention. So she would be my Most Improved Player. We obviously bought the Lexi Hull hype very early, that Lexi would be that player, would win 6th Woman of the Year as well. That has not really come to fruition. So my vote now is for Jess Shepard.
I mean, I think that she makes a great argument for it in the way that she has impacted the Lynx. She's gotten into the starting lineup with Phee being out. She's made an impact defensively, offensively. She's leading the league in field goal percentage right now. And she is a menace. And she is, up and down the court, both sides, and giving you the full intensity the entire time. And then, the Lynx add in that piece of Dejanay Carrington, which just it ups your defensive skill, but it just the way that that's coming together beautifully there. But I think, yes, Jess should be in that conversation. And I would also toss out, I would have kept Kayla Thornton in there with, and I would maybe even keep her in there still, even with her being out for half the season. But just incredible there to really will this Valkyries team for the first half and be a big part of that. And also, I think Veronica Burton has been doing incredible too there. So there's a lot. And I'm sure, like so many other players, that we don't have.
It's okay, Rebecca. They're not going to be offended if you don't mention their name. It's okay.
I'm sorry, but I think it's been amazing to see, and I think Kelsey Plum has almost a little tiny argument, though I don't think she'd win it, because she did have some struggles last year and obviously personal issues going on and all of that. But she has shown the player that she is, and she continues to be. So
and that's why I put her in the MVP conversation, because she has had to carry a team, and she doesn't have to carry the team when Rakia Jackson is on and when Cam Brink is on the floor, and certainly Azurá Stevens is leading the league in 3-point field goal percentage. She doesn't have to carry a team, but she certainly is the focal point of that team, and she was not with the Las Vegas Aces. And that's why I think she also deserves more credit, because she has stepped into a role that she previously did not have. Okay, I know you either want to agree with Caitlin Clark and I when we both, went off scorching hot back in April and said Sonia Citron's going to be the rookie of the year, and no one believed us. But guess what, folks? 22 and I were right. Again, Rebecca, have you joined the Sonia Citron stands?
I've been teetering, because Paige has been putting up some great numbers. She obviously has been able to get a lot of her scoring done, and she still has the rebounding, the assists and everything. And I think she's been I think she's been outpacing Caitlin slightly on some things in terms of the fastest to do X, Y, and Z. But then the Sonia Citron of it all is just the impact she's making on the Mystics, and not to say that you can't, Aaliyah Boston won with a crappy record with the Fever her first year. Not to say that, does Paige totally lose it? I just don't think it's an outright, unanimous situation with Paige. And the fact that she does have so much weight on her shoulders too with that team. But I just think that some of the impact that Sonia is making, she also, I think, has like the most double-doubles, leading rookies in double-doubles potentially, or her and Kiki are, I don't know, they've got them all over the place. I was thinking something about it, but I think that she overall has been making potentially arguably a bigger impact. Obviously hasn't dealt with the injuries Paige has, but I just think she should definitely be more in the conversation than just saying, this is Paige, this is it.
8 straight games in double figures, and she has played 31 games in her rookie season. 26 of them she has scored in double figures. And so, hey, just, if you got a vote out there for a Rookie of the Year contest, maybe you do want to consider Sonia Citron. That has been this week's main event. It is time to make some money, folks, with Mitch Northam, who is not here, which means it's making money with Mia. I don't know if I can keep up the torrid pace, Rebecca, that Mitch Northam is at right now. He went 3-0 again last week, now 17-10 on the season. Woo, mythical Mitch. That's what we call him, and it's for a reason. The problem, as I was sat down to make this week's picks, Rebecca, is that our friends at ESPN Bet and even some of the other sports books around the country, they don't have a ton of lines out just yet. So I'm just going to spitball this. I've got one that we do have a definitive spread for. And then the other two, we're just going to pick them straight up because I don't have any sports betting lines anywhere. So we will begin Wednesday. The Atlanta Dream at the Seattle Storm on ESPN3. I have the Dream in third place in the WNBA standings, covering a 1.5-point spread. You already heard me mention it. I've got questions about the Storm. They're obviously, they've got pelts on the wall, but I don't know if that will translate to chemistry on the floor. And the synergy is off the charts in the ATL. What say you?
I would say another person that probably could be included in the most improved conversation would be Naz Hillman, who has also been just really, really in the last few games showing out for the Dream. And I think that just the way that the Dream have been driving arguably all season, and now you have a healthy, mostly healthy, I think, BG and Ryan Howard. Jordan Canada is debatable, but they proved they could win without one of those puzzle pieces. And I think that they will still be able to, as the Storm are having to, still find some chemistry there.
I love this stat from Mark Schindler. You can visit his Patreon as he does WNBA drafting and scouting. From 2018 to last season, 233 games in college in the W, Naz Hillman made 1 3 on 12 attempts. She has made 35 this season and taken as many in her last 5 games, 32 3-point attempts, as she did in her past 5 seasons of organized hoops. another vote for Carl Semesco to be coach of
that's
the year
Carl
in the WNBA. It is raining threes in the ATL in addition to Florida Gulf Coast. On Friday, I am picking the Fever to straight up beat the Washington Mystics at home on Ion. As we alluded to, Indiana got a nice little stretch of home games here. Do we see Caitlin Clark on Friday? I don't know. What I do know is I think the Fever get off the schneid that they got on the back half of that road trip to the West Coast. We see the team that we saw against the Chicago Sky on Saturday.
I would not believe that it would. I'm not going to believe that it's going to be a super easy game. I think the Mystics are going to put up a fight, and it's probably going to be a tight one, and that's always fun for everybody. But I do think that the Fever will take it, and you have my girl Odyssey. She's gonna help us.
I really need to make the why can't you just be normal meme that I love to make for other teams, especially the New York Knicks. I really do need to make it for the Fever because they cannot play a normal basketball game. So Sonia is going to find a way to make it interesting, but I have the Fever winning on Friday. And it's okay, Mystics fans, because I have you winning straight up against the Sparks at home on Sunday, ESPN3. I feel like we need a little come back down to earth moment for the Los Angeles Sparks, who are riding high. I mean, look, they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. 15-16, still again vying for that 8 seed. They are a half game back of the Golden State Valkyries and Seattle Storm. Part of that is that they have played one less game. What say you, Rebecca? Because I do think the Mystics will have something to say about that 8 seed, even if it's not getting themselves into the postseason, but perhaps holding someone else back.
It's an interesting take. I think that when you talk about, the Sparks having their turnover issue, and you now have JC Sheldon in the mix, for the Mystics, that you have that kind of ball pressure going on, that they could potentially be losing that one, and that the Mystics, they know what they need to do to get to that 8 seed, and they're probably going to go for it. And I do think that, the Sparks need to probably be knocked back a peg, despite that they've been doing great, and I think, definitely have a reason to be in that playoff conversation, but, you can't keep winning them all. Yeah, somebody else has to win.
Yes, someone else does have to win, which they will be facing, by the way, the defending champion, New York Liberty, on Tuesday. This podcast will come out after that. Then they are on the road at Dallas on Friday, then at Washington on ESPN3 on Sunday, which is why I think it's the second half of a 2-game road trip. Maybe they slip up a little bit after taking care of business against Beckers and company. If Paige plays, who knows? Again, injuries, all of them. That is a storyline to watch for in the WNBA slate this week. Again, just to recap, let's hope I can make as much money as Mitch Northam does. I have the Dream covering a 1.5 point spread on Wednesday at the Seattle Storm. That game will be on ESPN3. I have the Fever straight up against the Mystics at home on Ion on Friday, and then the Mystics straight up at home Sunday against the Los Angeles Sparks. It's time for last call. And Rebecca, you've got a lot of plugs you want to share for some of the best WNBA content out there this past week. I quickly want to shout out my brother. If you're watching on YouTube, I just was gifted this nice hat from his time in London. So if you're wondering why I'm wearing a Notting Hill Gate hat, it's because I just was given it as a gift. So shout out to Kyle O'Brien. Rebecca's got a lot of shout outs to give.
Oh, so nice. I was going to mention, if you didn't get a chance to, Caitlin was on Bird's Eye View. She was also on A Touch More with Megan Rapinoe and Sue Bird. And I also came out today, Sue Bird had the chance to do something really funny, but I'm sure she never watched Glee, but she could have been done something that's this is how Sue sees it, like Sue Sylvester in Glee. I wish she could have, but
there's definitely a bunch of Gen Zers who have no idea what you're talking about as they're listening to this.
You guys got to watch Glee. It's bad, but it's good. But Caitlin on Bird's Eye View, I just think a really good insight into kind of a more relaxed Caitlin, and Sue Bird just probably being able to relate to Caitlin a lot in the sense of positions and also dealing with injury and knowing the kind of pressure that you're under. I think just a great conversation that you should check out. And then I haven't been able to watch it yet, but there is the Diana Taurasi documentary that's on Prime that I've heard is great. And definitely saw some chatter of people saying all new W fans need to watch it. So understandable. I'm sure it gives a lot of context to what these players were dealing with, especially early on in the W's infancy. Then the playoff player eligibility from waivers ends August 29th at 5 Eastern. And so you got to get your rosters all set. So we'll see what that means. I did want to add a funny tidbit from Cheryl Reeves, who brought in Jalen Sherrod who had been released from the Liberty. And they asked what she thought she would bring. And she said something along the lines of like corporate information or something like that. Like she would have some game plans from the Liberty. So I thought that was hilarious. But
okay, Cheryl. Well, Cheryl also said Emma Meeseman picked wrong. So, I mean,
yeah, she did
it's a very fun rivalry that's budding between the two teams on the top of the league who very much could meet again in the WNBA finals. But also, to your point of that August 29th deadline for playoff rosters to be finalized, two teams that have star players that, hey, are you going to be available? Can we get you on the roster prior to that deadline? Because I would think that's a pretty important day, is it not, Rebecca?
Yes, I would say so, because then the playoffs will begin September 14th. And you probably want to be playing a little bit before then to get your, feet wet and into it before you're having to fight for what's, a tough field of teams that are all starting to jive and really all want it real bad.
Amen to that, my friend. This has been a very fun episode, as it always is. Rebecca said, we're just going to talk some ball. Spoken like a true podcaster. Rebecca, Caitlin Clark, cutout head, thanks for sitting in for Mitch Northam here on the Women's Basketball Podcast. Oh, yeah. Rebecca, you know what we do at the end of the podcast, but it's okay. Caitlin can do it for us. We will catch you next week. Deuces.